Good evening, everybody. Jon Ashby here again on behalf of the Exhibition Budgie Regard Forum. Tonight we've got another interview with another well-known fancier. This evening I'm pleased to introduce James Folly, who is standing for the General Council elections this coming month. Good evening, James.
John, how are you, mate?
I'm really well, yeah. How have you been?
Yeah, not too bad. Busy time right at the moment, but yeah, very good, mate.
Good. How's lockdown been? Have you you got through it? Have you? It's not been.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's still ongoing really, but lockdown, for me has been a very busy and often stressful time. So you would think that with the birds and stuff that I would have more time for them, but over the past year really, I mean, I found it completely the opposite. I've spent more time at work probably this past year than I have in the last 5 years put together. So for me, my birds have taken a bit of a back seat. Split up breeding right in around April time, rested them completely, which can help them, I think, and also helped me in a way. I was able to recharge myself and hopefully to go again around about. Well, I mean, I did go again about September time, and started from there really.
Excellent. I know you're like me. You're in law enforcement, and I can only speak from my own perspective that the criminals haven't been on furlough, so
no.
I've been busy as ever.
Yeah.
So you've had less time for your birds. I mean, that bucks a bit of a trend, really, because many people have found more time for them.
Yeah.
But I know when you say that you've kind of not spent as much time, I know how dedicated you are. So I know there still would have been hours and hours each week thrown into them, and as you do. Okay, well let's take you back to the beginning. Can you explain to everyone watching how you got into bird keeping, please?
Yes, I mean, I was probably around 13 years old. I was like every other 13-year-old. I was on my bikes, playing cops and robbers, chasing my rider, having fights with my brothers and cousins. And I was out one day just riding onto my bike, and a budgie flew into my bike wheel, which was quite a shock because it's not something that you would see every day. Like a green budgie just flying around. So I scooped it up, and that was my first experience of a budgie bite, which at 13 was a shock, I can tell you. I scooped it up, took it home. It was absolutely starving, and I kind of nursed it back into health, and from that point really was the kind of beginning of my love for these little birds, and it purely by chance. By that point, I didn't really know what a budgie was. So like, it was an eye opener, but that was the catalyst of my time really.
Fantastic. So you kept that one as a pet, I assume, and how did you kind of make the step into breeding then, or keeping a sort of collection rather than just a single bird?
Yeah, well, I mean, I kept that for a couple of years. I kept pestering my parents. Can I have more? Can I have more? Bigger cages, etc. Finally, they relented, and I managed to have my own little flight right in bird room, right in my garden. Only a small thing, 7 foot by 4 foot shed with an outside flight, three breeding cages, but in a stock cage. And yeah, I mean, as I say, for me, but it was, me doing that kind of satisfied my to get more birds, because I wasn't satisfied with just one pet bird which I found. I wanted more, right? And the more I looked at these birds and I saw the exhibition standard, the more I wanted them, and I wanted to breed from them. But also what really helped me is that I managed to get a part-time job as a 15-year-old right in a local pet shop, which was an avian specialist, and as you can appreciate, they had all types of birds there, from the parrots to the macaws to the parakeets, ringnecks, everything. They had everything, and that kind of helped me, and I think proved to my parents as well that I was ready and capable of looking after birds in my own garden, basically.
Fantastic. And your parents were quite supportive, weren't they? Did they need a lot of persuading, or they could sort of ground them down? Did you?
Yeah. So I mean, my mum, she always loved animals, and so it wasn't really like a problem for her. Obviously, we're concerned that it would be a kind of 1 minute wonder, like a six month hobby for me. And like other teenagers, I would gradually lose interest and move on. But as you'd appreciate, 30 years later, I'm still here basically, looking after these little things, and they still hold the same amount of joy and fascination as they did, even when I was a 15 and 16-year-old. I never get too bored of going into my bird room and looking into a nest box and seeing a healthy brood lot of chicks. I mean, there's no better thing right in the world, John, and I would never change that at all.
Brilliant. No, I completely agree. I know that feeling is wonderful when, particularly when you've got young in the nests. It's and you're right. Once you get the bug, it just never leaves you, does it?
Never. And for me, obviously, there was a time. I mean, from the age of probably about 16 or 17, once I joined the BS. But again, I didn't go to any shows. I wasn't even aware of the shows really at that age. I wasn't given much help really locally. No guidance really. So for me, it was a stay-at-home hobby. It's something that I did right at home. I didn't really tell anybody because when you're late teens, just keeping budgies is just not cool. And so it was my little secret, but it's something that I got a lot of joy and a lot of pleasure out of. And as I say, I kept really birds right at home until my early 20s, when I finally moved out.
Standing and I'm amazed, because most of the time when I speak to people, they always say there was a local fancier who sort of took the younger version of themselves under their arm, and sort of really looked after them. But you didn't have that at all. There were no local breeders or none that you could find? Or... I
mean, you would think that working in this pet shop, would to kind of open doors for me, to certain people, and clubs. But there weren't many pure budgie fanciers in my area, really. They were mainly finch and canary breeders. Which, even though I enjoyed those types of birds, they weren't my first love, and they didn't give me the same feeling as a budgie did. So I was kind of stuck in a way. I mean, I did go to a couple of cage bird club meetings, but as you can appreciate, cage bird clubs, they cater for all birds, and really, there wasn't a lot of budgie related materials really, which was a shame because I needed that help at that stage, John.
And particularly back then as well. I know sort of late 80s into the early 90s, and perhaps now to a certain extent. I know your local club in Essex bucks that trend, but they're not great. I know they're late night meetings most of the time, but they're not geared up for kids, are they? So it's that. And I always remember when I went to my local club in Harrow and Hendon when I was sort of similar age to you were sort of talking about, sort of 13, 14. They made you welcome, but the meetings were pretty dreary, and they weren't. They're hard when you're a kid. You're the only one there, so I can understand why you didn't sort of find your way into a club in a deeper way. So I assume you moved out, got a place, got married, had kids, then got back into the birds. Is that kind of how it works?
Yes, I mean, but it was what I did. I left home probably mid 20s. I never forgot the birds. When I left home, my parents didn't get rid of them by any stretch. They kept them. They kept them going really. Obviously, right as they died, right as they left us, none were replaced. But they always kept a small amount of birds right in the garden. So obviously, when I came, to visit, right, it was good, to see them. But I did take one bird with me, and even though I didn't have birds right in my garden, I always had a budgie in the house, right in a cage, which this day and age, it's not as popular as what it was, say, right in the 50s, right in the 60s, and even the 70s. It's quite unusual, to have a pet budgies right in the house now, I think. But I did keep one, and that bird stayed with me, for at least 10 years. He made it, to a good age, and got to the point right in my home life where my kids were older. I was finding I had more time, and the decision was made really about 11 years ago, 12 years ago, that the time was right, to come back and have some birds right in my garden.
Excellent. I would just take you back a step. I know you said not as many people keep birds, but I was just preparing for this evening. I walked past the front room downstairs here, and it was on Antidec's takeaway, and there was a question they asked somebody: how many households have taken up keeping pets in lockdown?
Yeah,
and it was either 2.5 million or 3.2. Wow. The answer was 3.2 million. So yeah, I think we're on a resurgence anyway. So well, some good news.
Well, hopefully, lockdown will have some benefits. You may be right; it will make people think about hobbies more, or having more time, to do things at home, to amuse themselves right at home, and maybe, hopefully, obviously, right, if we put the right systems right in place, we can encourage that, to get more people, to have, avian pets basically, and specifically budgies.
Absolutely. So when you started back, what was your did you sort of, you obviously had it in your mind what kind of birdroom you want? Has this evolved, or are you still got the kind of setup you had when you came back in?
No, I made the age-old mistake that I didn't listen to people. I was too eager. We've all done it. We try to listen, to advice. We do listen, to advice. But I went ahead and really based my first. It wasn't really a birdroom, right? It was more of a shed. But, I based it really right on what I had right at my parents' house, like a bigger version. It wasn't too big. It was 9 feet by 7 feet shed with an outside flight, 2 internal flights, and roughly about eight breeding cages, right, and a stock cage. But it was a lot bigger than what I had right at home, but it was very much based on that system. And the more I say old-fashioned, it's not really old-fashioned, but the more traditional setup in a garden, and that kind of lasted for for a couple of years, right, until really, right in my eyes, right, it wasn't really fit for purpose. I had concerns about outside flights, about bio security, and also with cats and birds of prey, sparrowhawks in particular. I had concerns about that, and I also had concerns that the space wasn't giving me options when it came to problems with breeding. I just didn't have the cages to help me get through difficult situations right in the breed room, right in the bird room. So really, quite quickly after I had spent all this money, and this was money back then where your money was tight. So I had to be careful what I could or couldn't afford. But I quickly came to the decision, right, that it really wasn't fit for purpose. So I moved up and got something a lot bigger, which is what I've got now basically.
And what have you got now? Can you describe it? I know.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I mean, it's a shed basically. You know, right, it's a bit bigger than a shed now. You know, I call it a bird room. Right, it's 12 foot by 12 feet. Right, it's got a 12 by 4 foot internal flight, which houses all of the birds. I've also got a couple of stock cages, which I use for baby cages, and I have 20 breeding cages, which for me, is more than enough. You know, any more than that, you know, I tend to struggle with time, you know, to cleaning, feeding, looking after them. Obviously, over the kind of lockdown period, you know, I haven't filled all of the cages. I'll probably use 12 this breeding season, mainly for the reasons that I've said, just purely time, because it's just time as especially this last year has been at a premium. But I find that adequately covers what I need, and gives me lots of options. Really, I mean, I did experiment with a short time, with a trolley cage for babies, a little movable one for the centre. But I found that the birds, especially the babies, were getting too flighty in there. And they were becoming, uncontrollable, really. And especially, if I was looking, to show later on, I needed birds which were a bit more steadier. So I took advice, got rid of the trolley cage, baby cage, and now I put all my babies in relatively small stock cages, which seems to have helped, with their behaviours, basically.
Fantastic. And with your kind of formation birds, where did they come from? Were they sort of a mixed bag, or?
Yes, I mean, I was lucky, but at the time, I logged on, I was actively looking, for a club, because, as I say, as a young person, there wasn't any real Budgie clubs for me, so I actively decided that I wanted to join a Budgie club and speak to Budgie people, get advice. I mean, I joined the EBF right at the time, which I found very helpful. Put into contact with quite a few fanciers. Right, and my main foundation stock came from there was a chap who was in the hobby, whose name is James Theobald. He was based in Norwich. Very good bloodlines, very knowledgeable chap. And a very nice chap, and we kind of hit it off, and we kind of bounced off each other. I used to ask him advice, and my main foundation stock was based on his birds. I mean, I think he was a novice right at the time, so he wasn't a champion or been in hobby right a long time himself, but his birds were at such a level that it was only going to be a winner, in my eyes, if I did base my birds on his. I also went and visited Tom Luke, but up in Preston. Again, he was good. He was very good to me. Amazing advice, amazing setup, amazing birds, and I came away with a few birds, from him. And originally, that's where my lacewing line originally came from. Just purely by chance, by having a split off him, basically, which at the time, I didn't know it was a split, but it was a nice surprise when a little lacewing popped out, one of the nests, basically. But yeah, so they're my two main foundation lines. Obviously, there was a bit of mixing, the odd bird here and there, but right at the start, I went to various people, lots of different people, brought in lots of different birds from different, and it just didn't work for me. The quality wasn't there. What I was sold wasn't really what I was looking for, and it wasn't really until I had met James and Tom and obviously lastly Andrew that it really clicked for me.
Fantastic. And James, of course, was a moderator on the EBF back then, and I know you're quite right with it. Although he was a novice, he did have exceptional birds. So
yeah. So
that's given you a good. Obviously, gave you an excellent start.
Oh yes, yeah. I mean, I can. My first ever winner right at a show was purely based on his lines, right? But it was a first generation, my bird, but obviously, via his stock. Beginner that having success can set you up for the future, yeah.
I remember when I first met you about 10 years ago at Bedford. You whopped me with a really cracking grey-green cockbird.
Yes.
I remember you saying, I bred a number off this, and I was thinking, blimey, when's this bloke moving up? So that grey-green. I mean, I called him Butch, but he was a massive grey-green cockbird. He'd won a couple of best young bird rotting shows right as a beginner, which I was so over the moon with, and he was very much based on Theobald birds. I think he might have been second or third generation for me, but he was nicknamed Butch, even though he never made it into champion level because he died before I could get it. But I named him Butch because he was. He wasn't very butch, right? Let's put it that way. I mean, he used to squeal like a girl when I used to pick him up and pull his spots. I mean, you could hear him from down the bottom of the garden, but he was that. So I nicknamed him Butch. But again, he was a very special bird, which I still remember to this day. Yeah, he was good. I remember. I can see him now. Through all the rosettes, but the one thing I know that I probably have to add into this little interview this evening is that I know how incredibly modest you are, and you're, I've watched with great pleasure with you with your birds at various shows where you're always working hard up on the in the back room or running around helping organise shows, be it Southend or Mid Essex, etc. But I know that your birds are, you've done really well, haven't you? Up at Ipswich, you were doing tremendously well, and then sort of came out as tourists, and you'd won well. I think best opposite sex a couple of years back, and your birds are really, really nice and stylish. So I do need to add that in because I know you're modest. But,
thanks, John.
You're on the right track, aren't you? So,
thanks, John.
I do need to get that in.
I've improved now, though. That's the problem, isn't it? I have to improve them now. That's the hardest thing, isn't it?
Absolutely, no pressure.
No.
So what clubs do you belong to at the minute, then, James?
Currently, I'm a member of obviously my main club, which is Mid Essex. What a club, which I've been at, from the start of my return, roughly about 2009 maybe. I'm also a member of Dartford, Kent, BS, a very up and coming club. Done wonders, with the online material. I'm a member of Southend, BS, which is my another local club, and of course I'm a member of London and Southern, my area society, and also of course the Budgie Society. But
as I say, you kind of help at many, don't you? I know at Bedford you helped out. Ipswich, you're very sort of active in, aren't you, with helping with their shows and stuff. So you like to get around, don't you?
Yeah. I think it's important, to help these shows out because without help, these shows cannot exist, but and they cannot run. And I've always made a point of at least offering my help, and often it's gratefully received. Clubs and shows always need runners and stewards. people doing the paperwork. It's not the most exciting of jobs, but I have a history writing, obviously, admin and a previous, to my current role. So, it doesn't really worry me doing the paperwork or things like that. And often, shows just very, very grateful, for the help.
Particularly from people who know what they're doing as well and do it well. So I can see why they bite your hand off when you offer. But you're absolutely right. If I never know whether people are slow coming forward to offer help or whether clubs don't ask the question in the right way. When they look for people to help. I think often newbies are a bit put off and a bit nervous, but you'd agree, wouldn't you, that there's always lots of little jobs to do, isn't there? Even if it's just doing the feed raffle or just moving a few cages in or just sweeping up during the day is always something that makes a big difference, isn't there?
But it's the little things, which make the difference, John. I mean, even after the judging is finished, someone to go and put rosettes right on cages, or bringing the bells for the judges to check rings. Often you see once judging finished, people kind of relax and think the work's over, but really the work has just begun. The collating right of the results, the allocation of awards. It is never ending, right, until that show hall is completely empty. And as I say, I always try, to stay, stay right and help. And as I say, it's often gratefully received, which is good.
Absolutely. So, okay, well, I'm going to try and focus on Mid-Essex because clearly that's a club that's kind of blazed a bit of a trail during the last few years and has kind of grown exponentially from quite a small provincial club. It's almost, I think it's unfair to call it like an area society type club, really, isn't it, in terms of the numbers and the way it's organised. I mean, you don't have to comment on that. That's just a statement I'm going to make, that but it's so progressive that and the things it's been ambitious, and we'll perhaps talk about the raffle in due course, but so just going back a few years, so when you joined in 2009, there weren't many members there. How many? Who was there at that time? 4 or 5 of you, or?
Yes, I mean, I joined in 2009. I believe there was around about five active members, with maybe a couple more which didn't really come to many meetings. So, we're talking a handful right of members. I understood right at the time that previously they did have a good number right of members, but that had dwindled off. When I turned up and right at that first meeting, as I say, I mean, I was full of excitement. I thought, well, this is my chance, to get into a club. You have lots of experience, and when I came, there was literally probably 4 people right at the meeting. What original probably founding members which had been there right a long time, I mean, this was what 12 years ago maybe now, and even then, the same things were being said, or the hobby's dying. We don't have the members, things are not being done, etc., right? And I, I remember clearly to this day, sitting down, we all sat right in a circle, had a cup of tea, a slice of cake, and I said, do you have a newsletter? And they said, we used to, but the secretary hasn't done a newsletter for months. So I thought, okay. And I said, do you have any programs right in place? Do we have any, talks? Do we have any, anything basically? And there was nothing right in place right at the time, right? And I remember thinking to myself, this doesn't have to be this way. there are things that can be done relatively quickly, to bring the club back up to at least where it was, and I mean, to be honest, but it's exceeded all of my expectations there. What's happened there, and but it just shows what can be done with a positive outlook, some good ideas, and other members at the club which are willing to support what you're trying to achieve. And we are where we are now, because of those members and also because of those positive ideas.
So at that point, so you've gone from, I mean, we could sit here all night talking about the evolution of it, but we've gone from sort of 5 members. What did you take on a position quite quickly?
Yes, I mean, it's quite fun. Yeah, the chairman right at the time, who's our chairman now, funny enough, and but a long-standing member, very supportive. I said to what can be done, to sort this out? He said, well, we need a secretary really, to do the boring stuff, so to speak, the paperwork, the newsletters, the organisation, and he said, do you want the job? So I looked at him as a first-year beginner, and I thought, do you know what? Yeah, I do. I think I can make a difference here. I think we can achieve something. And as I say, you really, but it sprouted, from there. We set up. I set up the Mid-Essex Facebook page first up. I mean, this was when Facebook, it was around, but it wasn't as popular and as big budgie-wise as what it is now. Set up a Facebook page, try to get a little bit of advertising, try to recruit members, from other clubs, set itineraries right in place, try to include members which were coming. Maybe each member could have a talk right each month, and just try to get people right involved. Because after all, it is their club. So that's what I did, and it kind of really grew from that point, really.
Fantastic. And what positions have you held there, James, at Mid-Essex?
Well, I was general secretary then, which I am now. I mean, there have been a few years. I think the odd here and there, for personal reasons, but I took a backward step just, for a break. But I've held patronage secretary there. I've even been chairman, I think, for a couple of years. So, I've held most posts there. But as we grew and we attracted more members, there were needs to increase the amount of officials that we had at the club, to cater for what we was trying to achieve. So we ended up creating a secretary's role, and things like that. So there are whilst we've got rid of some posts and we've gained other posts, which I think what is more important in today's world of advertising and getting our voice and our ideas out there, And
I think it's fair to say as well that the club's been fortunate, and you've been fortunate that you've had other people with good ideas, good new ideas, who are prepared to work collaboratively, and a similar mindset, who do get on tremendously well. You mentioned our own Ricky Anderson, and all the tremendous stuff he's done. Graham Payne, Ian Thorogood. There's just loads of people, aren't there?
Yeah,
I've not forgotten anybody. Martin Frost. All these people who have been tremendous.
Yeah, I think the the key, John, is that not one person has created this job. There may have been a catalyst, which I was I was the first of the, I'll say, new guys, to turn up. But I was the catalyst with some ideas, but right at the club, it is a team effort, and we've got some very capable people right at that club. Not just new people, but we've also got very capable older fanciers, and the key is that it doesn't really matter how long you've been in this hobby. If you have an open mind, right, and willing to try new things, anything can be achieved. Right, and those names were, what you mentioned, there's Alan Baker, who's been at the club, since the start, who's our president now. Good idea, Ian, Martin, and obviously Ricky Anderson came along a short time after I did. I think only a couple of months later, and obviously Graham Payne as well, who has helped the club massively. But there are other people as well, which there's too many names to mention. Everybody chips in. Everybody has ideas. I'm not to say whether we never have any arguments or never have any disagreements, because after all, we are different people. We do think differently, but the thing that binds us, is the fact that we are working towards the same goal, and that's to create and to, more importantly, to sustain a club which will be with us for a long time. And everybody has got the club's best interest right at heart.
Absolutely. Well, I can't deny any of that. But what I'd like to take you on to now is, obviously you've stepped into London and Southern. You've had quite a big involvement with for a number of years. What positions have you held there, James, please?
Yeah, I'm currently patronage secretary. So all the patronage requests which come through to me. I collate results. I create the tables, and I send out all the rosettes. It's a job. You during the kind of springtime of every year is a very time-consuming job, and of course, once the show season kicks in, I'm always getting results, right? And it's a lot of admin work, but again, it's something which I enjoy doing, and I think I am quite good at doing it. And it's a job that not very many people want or like doing. Also, at London Southern, I'm also on the shows committee. So when we're organising in area shows, young stock shows, I sit on there, putting forward some ideas.
Fantastic, and it's quite clear that the next logical step, which for you is to go for this BS General Counsel with all your sort of ideas and experience. I mean, how are you feeling about that? I'm not going to labour that point too much, because I think the elections have been took to death generally online. But are you quite looking forward to the prospects of the election? And
it's been a long time coming. It seems like it's been building up, for a year with everything which has gone on. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be tough, to get elected. But it's obviously people need to make their choices. They will read my election address of 150 words in the magazine, and make their choice. But I'm looking forward to it. I tried last time 3 years ago. Didn't quite make it. I was not a few votes short. Not a lot in the grand scheme of things. Maybe 10 or so. So, I will keep trying until I get onto that council, because I feel that I can make a positive contribution to this hobby. Remembering the past, honouring the past, but preparing us for the future, which could be a tough future. But the things we do now, right, and put in place now, could help us and sustain us for the future. But they need to be done now, before it's too late. In my opinion.
Well, I think they're incredibly wise words, and it's quite clear from what I know about you and what you said this evening. You've got the credentials, and I think it's really, obviously I'm standing myself, but I'd quite happily not get on the basis that someone with a bit of Mid-Essex magic got onto the General Council and brought those brilliant ideas across. And I can't think of anyone better than you, James. So I do wish you the very best of luck.
Thanks, John. I appreciate that. Thank you.
No, it's a pleasure. Anyway, so let's get back to the budgies.
Yeah.
So, favourite type of budgie? What variety, James? What do you like the most? Is there one?
It's a cliche, John, but I prefer to look at a good budgie over any colour. I mean, it could be anything. Just so long as it's a good bird, well balanced, not excessive. But a good budgie which is well balanced, right, is a thing of beauty, right, in my eyes. And to me, right, it doesn't matter what colour, right, it is. I am a sucker for lacewing, John, as you know. They are, they right at the start, they were my little plaything. But I was finding that I was breeding such decent quality birds, purely by chance and accident, right at the start. Is that I've been putting my lacewings into my normal lines, for a long time. So it gets to the point now where these things are just popping out, and usually they're quite decent quality because I have been putting them into my better quality stuff rather than keeping them separate. I think often sometimes people specialise, right, in a variety, right, and I kind of keep them away from others, keeping them separate, and often when I tried that, I found that the lines were going backwards, but if I put them into my better birds, of course, right, if you put your birds into better birds, you're going to breed better birds, and I found, right, that this is what happened to my lacewing. So I am a sucker, for a lacewing, especially a lacewing yellow. I think they are, right, a really good, lacewing yellow is as I say, right, a thing of beauty. But yeah, I mean,
So, okay, thank you for that. So, what sort of major issues have you faced in the hobby, and how did you go about fixing those? Is there anything sort of really profound that you've kind of learned that you wouldn't do, or you could sort of advice you could pass on?
Yeah, I mean, issues. I mean, there are always issues in every hobby. We've got the issues of the birds themselves. Not breeding, sickness. Lots of different things. From my experience, we all have problems breeding wise, with the birds. Everybody's the same. Some people are very vocal, right, and talk about their problems. Possibly right in trying to help themselves and also other people, right. And some people don't talk about their problems, but it's my opinion, right, that we all have problems with our birds. What in the bird room, from sickness to breeding, French molt, chicks suddenly dying, feather problems. It's we've all got it. Got it basically. So I mean, what I would say is that what if we do have problems, with our birds, don't be shy. Talk about it to others, because the only way we can gain knowledge, right, and to help each other is by talking to each other, right, about our problems, and that's what's I found I'm always sounding off to people, distressed phone calls, annoyed phone calls. This has happened. My best bird's are gone. This is sick. Blah blah blah. And it's good to talk to people, right, and get advice. So that's the first area right of problems. Obviously, there are other areas, personalities right at clubs, that can be a problem. But the way that I see it is that we are all different people. We all have different ideas to be done, but we have to realise that we all have one aim, and that's to have a good and successful club. And just so long as things that are going on are not destructive, that it should be encouraged. Debate, argument, nice argument, but argument should be encouraged, because that is the only way we can grow. Grow the hobby. Take on ideas. That's how I see it, basically.
Fantastic. And what are the sort of big challenges facing the hobby at this time, as you see them?
Well, for me, it's recruitment and retention of members. That for me is the biggest problem I think we have now, and also right in the future. Without members, we don't have a hobby. Without members, we don't have shows. Without members, we don't have clubs. And to me, that is the main challenge I think we have as a hobby. What is keeping our hobby relevant in the 21st century? Because as far as I can see, it's quickly becoming irrelevant to a lot of people, which is it's sad, and what is such a wonderful thing to have what is animals in your garden, which you can look after, show, and get such a lot of enjoyment out of. But we need to make it relevant, especially to the younger people, because after all, they are going to be the exhibitors of the future. They are going to be the chairman. They are going to be the BS councillors. They are going to be the kind of backbone of our hobby in 10, 15, 20 years time. So recruitment and retention and engaging young people is, for me, one of the most important things that we need to think about.
Absolutely. And how have you got any ideas on how we can make it the hobby of choice, as I like to put it, for people? Yeah. Is there any sort of real top ideas you've got? How, I suppose we've got to try and think big, much bigger than we've perhaps done as a society.
It's a difficult one, John, because I've got young children. I know that you've got young children. I'm trying to engage them for any length of time with all the other things going on in this world, which are open to them now. I just compare it, to when I was a kid. I know I'm 45 now, and some people might say, well, that was a long time ago. But things have changed massively, and technology is the big thing that we need to use to get young people engaged. Now, some people are frightened of technology, okay, but it shouldn't be that way. We should use it to our advantage. Young people and kids, they are technology based. They are not the same as what I am now, or the older, purely technology based. They get all their information from technology, from phones, from apps, from YouTubes. They hardly ever sit down and watch TV now like we used to do, or still do. It's all phone based. So we need to engage them. You make the hobby relevant in the 21st century. Now, how that can be done, that's open to discussion. But I've seen what can be done in such a short amount of time, especially at Dartford Kent BS, and how they've progressed the online technology side of stuff, and they are engaging a lot of people, and that is what it's all about, John. That it's about engaging people, getting people interested. People that are right engaged are more likely later in life to come back to the hobby. Now, I'm not saying this is the be all and end all, and once someone at the age of 10 starts looking at budgies and being an active right on internet sites and doing internet shows and lots of things like that, will stay in the hobby. But even if they come back to the hobby, say in 10, 20 years time, like I did, they will be the backbone for us right in the future. And all it takes is to engage a small percentage of kids, right? And that could be the difference between us having a hobby in 30 years time or not having a hobby right in 30 years time.
I think it's key that we look ahead, don't we? That we have as a society, we have a proper long-term plan where it's not 2 or 5 years. It's really, looking forward, because I don't think any of us want to look back, do we, when we're properly growing old and think, oh, we really missed an opportunity there. We let the side down. So I completely agree with what you've said. And technology is the way. It is the future. To be honest, we're kind of old farts, really. And a bit backward. Certainly in my case, when it comes to technology, the kids, they just do everything. They're so tech savvy. They just do everything online. And certainly lockdown has shown us, I think, that what can be done. At my building with 2,000 people, there's only been about 30 of us in there. No, are people going to go back to the office? I don't think they are. No. It's all done on Zoom. It's all done at home. So, hopefully, with people being at home more, that will afford people more time. So It's about building a future, John. And the thing is, we can't build a future if we sit and do nothing now. And it's as simple as that. Somebody or some of us need to be bold, like what some clubs have done around the country. The ones that I've mentioned. It doesn't have to be like it, because that, yes, keep the best parts, but we don't have to keep the bad parts. And we can create new parts to our hobby. We can have things running side by side. We can have the more experienced fanciers doing their shows and doing what they've always done. But we can also have a younger side of the hobby, which focuses more on online stuff. And there's there is lots of avenues to explore. And those young people, they are the exhibitors of the future. As I said, they are, what we need badly, basically. No, I agree. And as you say, having a plan, and you're right about the traditions as well. We have got some fantastic traditions in the hobby, and I think they are to be respected and to be honoured and protected. But you're right. You just need to. You just make new traditions, don't you? And you just keep moving forward. And I think,
traditions have to start somewhere. They were created as a new idea right at some point, and then it's carried on throughout the years, and it becomes a tradition. So we shouldn't be afraid of creating new ideas, because in 20, 30 years time, that could be our tradition, and we can't write things off just because we don't understand them. We need to engage people, because it's going to make all the difference in the future, I think, John.
Absolutely. Okay, let's go back to the bird room. What are the top 5 products in your bird room, James? I'm always, me, I'm always nosy. I walk into a bird room and my dear friend Kevin Pestle says, watch him, he's going to start opening cupboards. And I do. And I make no apologies. Well, I do ask first. But I'm fascinated by what little tricks people and the products people have got.
Yeah. I use a supplement called the Matrix, which is a a kind of a grit-based supplement which has bits of iodine in it. It has calcified groats in it, and I use that in all the breeding cages and in the flights. Right, and the birds love it. They, I don't buy iodine blocks anymore. I don't buy cuttlefish. They purely get a pot of this, and they absolutely love it. They eat the iodine bits first, and then they gradually go through right all the rest of the bits. Babies love it as well. They love to play in pots. I see them having dust baths right in the pots. I mean, it's amazing. And it's also quite a reasonable price as well. I mean, it's not a specific Budgie product. I mean, I think they use it, for pigeons, but as well. But my birds love it. So that's my first supplement of choice. I use Thrive Gloss, which is for like a protein fish-based supplement. But in my breeding cages, I have done since I've come back into the hobby. Again, the birds love that. That's a good thing. Murphy's Minerals, I give again. Side by side with the Thrive Gloss, they always have a finger jaw of each. Again, all the birds eat that. I mean, I don't know, one pair which refuse to touch it. So that's another good thing. Any liquid calcium product. I mean, I'm not too fussy what it is. There are a lot of products out there, but at the start, I mean, I never used to feed calcium products to the birds. But I'll say over the past 4 to 5 years, I mean, I've started giving it to my breeding cages and have found much improved health in the birds. I don't get as much what I call calcium deficiency shock, where they look like they get paralysed in the breeding cage. I don't have hardly any soft eggs. Bottle problems with eggs. Some people say, "Oh, don't feed too much because the egg thickness becomes more firm." But honestly, I've never found that at all. So I usually feed that one on, one off. So I think a calcium with a vitamin D added to it, because obviously a lot of our bird rooms now are internal. They don't get a lot of natural sunlight. So I think that helps massively, right? And I think that the number one product which has changed my bird room really, is for the hand feeding of chicks. When we get chicks which are not fed by the parents very well, we always get them. Either the runt doesn't get fed very well, and suffers, or when they leave the nest, they're not fed. I feed them a mix called NutriBird A21, which for me, is like a powdered formula which you kind of water down, and I feed directly with a crop tube. And I've saved so many chicks by using this stuff. I'm sure there are other products in which does the they really like the NutriBird, and sometimes, even though I am shoving a crop needle down their throat, sometimes I can see them looking for it when I come into the bird room. So it must be doing them some good.
Fantastic, brilliant. Thank you for sharing that with us. And last question, how can we improve the show experience for organisers, fanciers, and visitors?
Wow. Well, there's a question, John, isn't it? It's organisers. I mean, I'm talking from somebody who has organised shows, with help from others, and also are at shows where I do a lot of the organising, and I think the whole hobby would benefit from a standardised show package, which is created by the BS, and an online show package, which is created by the BS and filtered down to every championship show. thus standardising everything, then there's no duplication. There's not a lot of writing. There's basically the results. When they come in, they will self-generate. You type in one result, and then it will self-generate. To prepare for the next lot of sheets. Like a standardised package. And I know what has been mentioned, by a few people. I think Ricky Anderson has mentioned it also right in the past that a standardised show package would benefit the whole hobby. And when it comes to supplying this package, I think the BS need to be proactive about this. They need to support shows so clubs with very little funds, there must be a kind of way that they could apply for a grant where the BS would supply them with the computer systems. We need to support our shows, and that will go a long way. Right, I think, right in doing that. So that's what I think about the organisers side of things. Just a standardised way. I know there are help checklists on the site, but a lot of that is duplication, right? But if you look at that, some of the roles show managers have, is exactly the same as the role a show secretary has. It seems to be a lot of duplication involved, and on a simple IT-based package with training, I think would help the organisational side, massively.
So there's a bit of an investment there, but a long-term gain as a consequence.
Well, because
and I suppose the easier you can make it for people, the more enjoyable shows are for the organisers as well. I don't know about you, I often think that the organisers never get to enjoy their own show, do they? Because perhaps they're working so damn hard. So I think that's a brilliant idea.
People rather don't help out right at the shows, or often they don't realise how tough it can be, and also how stressful what it can be. When errors come back, and the amount of duplication and writing there is phenomenal. So just a simple IT package which can self-generate results, where it cannot, you cannot make a mistake really, because you're self-generating right, and they're perpetuated right the way along the line, even so far as you can send those results directly back to the BS after the show via the online system. It is but it will need somebody to work at it. But I think that's something that would help us massively.
Absolutely, and you're absolutely right to give Ricky a big mention there, because I know that's one of his babies as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Particularly keen to get implemented, and he's that for me, and I'm sure you're with me on this one. That's the reason I think we need the membership need to elect Ricky, so he can really push on with and sort of bring forward some of these tremendous IT innovations that would benefit the Fanciers.
Well, exactly. I mean, he's capable of. Yeah, I mean, going back to what I said about engaging younger people, we need technical savvy people on the BS, to come up with these ideas, to engage young people. But it's not all about engaging young people. It's also helping older people like me. When it comes to organising shows, so yes, we need more, technical savvy people like Ricky. You're working with the BS and hopefully elected.
Because I think that we've got them amongst our membership as well, haven't we? I know I've spoken to some people that are particularly IT literate, and I know Ricky's sort of connected up with a lot of them, so they are out there, aren't they? They're there.
Oh yeah.
We could bring them into the fold, co-opt them onto various groups, and really involve them as a great cost saver, but also getting that expertise from our own membership would seem to make a great deal of sense. James, it's been a fascinating hour. as I say, that I'm not, the very best of luck for the GC elections in the next few weeks, and I really do hope to see you on that general council.
Thanks, John.
By the time we get to mid-April. So on behalf of the Exhibition Budget Regard Forum, James, thank you very much. Stay safe and well, and I wish you the very best of luck with your breeding season. Okay, James, thank you very much.
John, thank you for having me. I much appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Cheers, mate.